They say every family has its rhythm. Ours was just a little offbeat. My name is Judy Floyd, 36 years old, owner of Floyd Horizons Travel, a boutique agency that builds custom trips for families and corporate teams. To most people, that sounds like luxury, gelato photos in Florence, hammock selfies in Tulum. But the truth? It's spreadsheets at midnight, rescheduled flights, and rerouting sick toddlers off red ice before the gate closes. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. I live alone, but my life is full.
Client.
Staff.
Airports.
A boyfriend named Ethan who speaks fluent com. If I have a brand, it's competence. If my family has a brand, it's Judy will handle it. And like always, I was handling it, dessert, coffee, and that it's fine, I've got it smile that slips on like a uniform. Mom's text last night was the same as always. Roast chicken 1 p.m. Your dad loves the lemon cake from Briar Lane. Then, as if casually, Evan's kids are coming. Please don't be late. I wasn't late. I've made a career out of not being late. The drive to my parents' house was muscle memory. Up the hill, left at the eucalyptus tree, past the dented mailbox from Evan's parallel parking phase. My brother, Evan, the family's golden boy. Married young, 2 kids, a mortgage, and the ability to charm his way through any mistake. I pulled my SUV into the driveway, the shine of my company decal catching the sun. It wasn't just a car. It was a working vehicle, insured commercially, roomy enough for luggage and samples, for the life I built with nothing but a laptop and a stubborn spine. Sometimes, on weekends, Evan borrowed it for the kids. Sometimes is a word that evaporates if you don't defend it. I grabbed the lemon cake and coffee from the passenger seat. Then, almost reluctantly, I picked up the gray folder. It didn't match anything, not me, not the Sunday vibe. I didn't even want it. But something told me I might need it. That folder held receipts, insurance papers, and bank statements, proof that I wasn't the careless one, the selfish one, the one who could be taken for granted. Proof that I'd paid more than my share, literally and emotionally. Walking up to the door, I reminded myself, we're adults. We'll be fair. It's just a car. Still, the folder felt like carrying a fire extinguisher into a candlelit room. Inside, the house smelled like thyme and butter. The soundtrack was the usual, plates clinking, mom humming, the TV murmuring from the den where Evan's kids bickered over cartoons. Dad sat at the head of the table, checking the football scores he pretends not to care about. Mom fluttered between kitchen and dining room, playing conductor to chaos. Chloe, Evan's wife, had her phone propped against a vase, camera angled just right to capture 3-generation Sunday. And then there was Evan, relaxed, smiling, like someone who's never had to solve anything harder than picking a fantasy football lineup. Judy, Mom sang, kissing my cheek. Thank God you brought the lemon cake. You'd think the chicken carried itself, Dad teased, taking the cake like I'd handed him a trophy. I smiled. That same polite, composed smile I'd worn for years. As I slipped my keys into my purse, Chloe arched an eyebrow. Babe, she said to no one and everyone. Tell me that thing has seat warmers. My back is killing me. It does, I said evenly, not offering more. She grinned like she'd already added it to her mental wish list. I set the gray folder on the chair beside me, pretending it wasn't there. My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. You're stronger than the room. Call me after. I typed back a heart emoji and turned the screen face down. For the next 10 minutes, we danced around small talk. Weather. Evan's twins' new teacher who doesn't get boys. The new parking meters downtown. It was all the kind of conversation that pretends to be harmless but secretly sets the stage for something bigger. I sipped my coffee, didn't need it, but it gave my hands something to do. Then Dad tapped his glass with a fork. Not loud, just managerial, like a meeting cue. All right, he said, glancing at Mom. Before we eat, let's settle one small thing. The room quieted, and I felt my chest tighten. He looked straight at me. Calm, reasonable, like this was just another to-do list item. It's settled, he said. Your sister gets your SUV. A pause. She has kids. For a moment, I thought I misheard. The words hit like static in a quiet room. Chloe smiled softly, almost sympathetic, but not really. Evan stared at his plate. Mom busied herself pouring water. She didn't need to pour. Wait, I said, keeping my tone even. My SUV? Dad nodded like it was the most logical thing in the world. Well, it's family.
You can get another one, right?
You're doing well for yourself. Evan's been driving that old van and the kids. The rest blurred out. The gray folder beside me suddenly felt heavier. My SUV, the one I'd worked for, paid for, insured under my business, wasn't a toy to be passed around like a casserole dish. But looking around that table, the people who raised me, the ones who always assumed I'd say yes, I realized they genuinely believed it was. I took a slow breath and smiled. That same polite smile, the one they all recognized. But this time, it wasn't covering compliance. It was covering resolve. Dad cleared his throat, and the familiar clink of silverware paused midair. He adjusted his glasses, that little gesture he did before saying something important. My stomach already knew what was coming. So, he began, his voice steady but rehearsed, your mother and I have been talking about making things easier for everyone. The phrase, making things easier, always meant for Evan. I kept my face still. Years of Sunday dinners had trained me well. Dad continued. You know, Judy, you've got that nice SUV, the big one from your company. It's just sitting there most weekends, right? There it was. The casual tone before the blow. I nodded slowly. It's my work car, Dad. It's insured through the agency. Right, he said, waving a hand as if insurance were a minor inconvenience. But Evan's car is on its last legs, and with the twins and Chloe's new job. Chloe chimed in, perfectly timed. It's just been really hard juggling 2 kids and 1 car, especially when Evan needs to get to work. Evan nodded, that easy grin dimming into practiced humility. We just figured it might make sense for someone who doesn't really need it all the time to. Stop, I said a little too fast. The table froze. Even Mom, who usually smoothed everything over with a refill of mashed potatoes, didn't move. I took a breath. Dad, that car isn't just transportation. It's my business. My clients trust me because I show up looking like someone who can handle their lives. That SUV is part of that. Mom glanced at Dad. Sweetheart, no one's saying take it away permanently. Maybe just share it.
Share.
That word again. The one that had followed me my whole life. Share your toys, Judy. Share your room, Judy. Share your time, Judy, because Evan has soccer, because Evan's tired, because Evan's life apparently carried more weight. I smiled thinly. Sharing means both people get something out of it, Mom. Evan leaned forward, elbows on the table. It's just a car, Judy. No, I said quietly. It's not. The silence that followed was thick, the kind that hums under your skin. Then Dad sighed, that long, disappointed exhale that used to make me feel 10 years old. Let's not make this a big thing. It's settled. Evan and Chloe can use your SUV for a while. They have kids. You can manage with your smaller one, right? That word, settled, hit harder than I expected. It wasn't a discussion. It was a decree. Something inside me cracked open. I glanced at the gray folder beside me, the one I'd promised myself I wouldn't open unless I had to. I thought about the long nights building my business from nothing, the rejections, the sleepless hours writing proposals on layovers, the moments I doubted myself and kept going anyway. And here I was, still the reliable one, the default giver. Dad was already carving the chicken, as if the conversation was done. Chloe smiled softly at her phone, probably texting someone about how family always works things out. I excused myself to the kitchen, pretending I needed more coffee. Mom followed. Honey, she said gently, you know your father just wants peace. Evan's had a rough year. Has he? I asked, turning. Because from where I'm standing, he seems fine. New phone, new watch, another promotion. And me? I'm the one who's supposed to make it all easier for him again. Mom's eyes flickered with something like guilt. You're strong, Judy. You've always been. Yeah, I said softly. And that's exactly why no one ever checks if I'm tired. She didn't answer. Just reached for the lemon cake knife and cut a piece, like sugar could mend the tension in the air. When I returned to the dining room, Evan was laughing about something on his phone. Dad had resumed talking about football. My seat felt colder somehow. I sat down, hands folded, calm on the outside. Inside, a quiet decision was forming, the kind that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, just a steady click. If they thought they could take what was mine just because I wouldn't fight back, they were going to learn something new about me. Dinner dragged on. Small talk patched over the earlier sting, and when I finally stood to leave, Evan called out cheerfully, "You'll drop the SUV off next weekend, right?" I smiled, the same "it's fine" smile I'd worn my whole life. "Sure," I said. "Next weekend." But as I drove home under the streetlights, my reflection in the windshield didn't look fine. It looked done. That gray folder sat on the passenger seat now, unopened but heavy, like it knew what was coming. Ethan called as I pulled into my driveway. "Hey, how'd it go?" I hesitated. It went exactly how I thought it would. He was quiet for a beat. "Then I think you're ready to open the folder." I looked at it again, the thin, ugly gray thing that didn't match me. But maybe it was time to let it. Because if they wanted to settle things, so could I. I didn't open the gray folder that night. I left it on my kitchen counter, next to my untouched dinner and a glass of wine that went warm. I just stared at it. That thin, silent thing that carried more truth than my entire family had ever cared to hear. It had taken me 3 years to build what was inside. Every sleepless night, every booking error fixed at 2 a.m., every favor, every connection. My boutique agency wasn't just a business, it was mine. A reflection of the woman who'd stopped waiting for people to choose her. But the next morning, I woke up to a text that made my blood go cold. "Evan. Hey. Dad said you're bringing the SUV over Friday night. Chloe's planning a weekend with the kids. Thanks again, sis red heart." No question mark.
Just thanks again.
Like the decision was already made, and I was just logistics. I stared at the screen, my coffee growing cold in my hand. Ethan, who'd spent the night on my couch, looked over from the kitchen counter. "That the brother?" I nodded. He sighed. "You don't have to let them keep doing this, you know." "I know," I said. My voice sounded calm, but there was a storm building beneath it. "They think I'll just hand it over. Because I always do." Ethan walked over, leaned on the counter beside me. "Then maybe this time you don't." That night, I opened the gray folder. Inside were documents, a full breakdown of my company's assets, contracts, travel partnerships, client retainers, even the private investment fund I'd quietly built after my first profitable year. At the top was a single page, my most recent financial summary. Net worth, $26.4 million. I stared at it, numb. I hadn't meant to hide it, exactly. But when you come from a family that treats your generosity like an ATM, silence becomes protection. They saw me as the organized one, the one who'd made a cute little travel thing. They had no idea I'd become one of the top boutique travel consultants on the West Coast, running operations for corporate retreats, luxury families, even a few public figures. And they didn't need to know. Until now. Friday came faster than I expected. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, the familiar ache in my chest returned. The same house, the same laughter through the windows, the same roles waiting for me inside. Evan opened the door with a grin. "You actually made it on time."
Wow.
I forced a smile. I said I would. He reached for my keys before I even stepped in. "Let me just move your SUV into the garage for the weekend." "Not yet," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. He blinked. "What?" Dad's voice boomed from the living room. "Judy, honey, we're all set to sign the insurance papers Evan brought." I froze. "Insurance papers?" Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "Yeah, we figured since we'd be using it regularly, might as well get it under our name. Makes things simpler for you." My chest burned. I'd come expecting to talk. They'd already planned the transfer. "Wow," I said, my voice cold now. "You guys really did settle it, didn't you?" Dad smiled like it was a compliment. "It just makes sense, sweetheart. Evan's got a family. You're independent. You can always lease something new later." Chloe was sitting at the table, scrolling her phone. "We can even put a sticker for your company on it, make it like a joint thing." Great advertising. That word, independent, suddenly tasted bitter. It had always been code for you don't count the same. I walked to the dining table, placed the gray folder in front of Dad, and slid it toward him. "What's this?" he asked. "Something I think you all should see before we go any further." Evan frowned. "Is this about the SUV?" "It's about everything," I said. Dad opened the folder, flipping through the documents with a confused expression. The first page stopped him cold. His eyes widened, scanning the numbers twice. 26 million, he whispered. Mom leaned over. "What?" I spoke evenly, my voice steady, calm. "That's how much my business is worth. The one you all treat like a hobby. The one that paid for the SUV you're trying to take." The room went silent. Evan looked at me like I'd just spoken another language. "You're kidding, right?" "I'm not," I said. "You think I just plan vacations? I manage corporate travel accounts for Fortune 500 clients. My staff runs logistics on 5 continents. I don't talk about it because it never mattered to you. Only what I could give you." Dad set the papers down slowly, like they were too hot to touch. "You've never told us any of this." "You never asked," I said. "You just assumed." Chloe was pale now. "So, you're rich?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it.
"No."
"I'm successful. There's a difference." Evan's tone shifted, defensive. "You don't have to throw it in our faces." "I didn't," I said, finally meeting his eyes. "You forced me to."
No one spoke for a long time.
Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "Judy, this doesn't change that your brother still needs help." I cut him off.
"No, Dad."
"It changes everything." For the first time in years, my voice filled that house. Steady.
Certain.
Not asking permission. I stood, took my keys from the table, and walked toward the door. "You all wanted to settle something tonight. Consider it settled." When the door clicked behind me, I felt lighter than I had in a decade. In the driveway, under the glow of the porch light, I got into my SUV, my company's vehicle, my achievement, my freedom, and drove away. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Families like mine don't surrender power easily. This was only the beginning of the reckoning. The following days were quiet, too quiet. No group texts about birthdays, no passive-aggressive memes from Mom, no "can you swing by" calls from Dad. Just silence. I thought maybe they were processing. Maybe, for once, they'd realized I wasn't the family's safety net. But by Tuesday morning, my assistant Ava walked into my office with a furrowed brow and a printed email in her hand. "You might want to see this," she said carefully. I read it once. Then again. It was from our corporate insurance agent.
"Y Judy."
"We received a call from a man identifying himself as your father, requesting confirmation that the SUV was still insured under your business name. He mentioned transferring ownership soon. We need your authorization before we proceed." I put the paper down slowly. "They didn't." Ava winced. "You want me to handle it?" I shook my head.
"No."
"This one's mine." I picked up my phone, scrolled to Dad's name, and hit call. It rang twice. "Judy," he answered, his tone forced casual. "Good morning." "Morning," I said flatly. "Want to explain why you called my insurance company?" He hesitated.
"Oh, that."
"I just wanted to check some details for Evan's sake. You know, make sure the car's in good standing before." "Before what, Dad?" My voice sharpened. "Before you illegally transfer a company vehicle into someone else's name?" "Don't exaggerate, sweetheart," he said, that patronizing calm tone he'd perfected over the years. "We're just trying to make things easier for everyone. For everyone except me." He sighed, like I was the unreasonable one. "Evan's struggling, Judy. His wife's back is out. The kids are growing fast. You're doing great. You don't even use that SUV as much anymore." "Stop," I said quietly. "You don't get to decide what I use, what I own, or what I've earned. Not anymore." There was a long pause. Then he said the words that finally broke something in me. "You've changed." I let out a dry laugh.
"Yeah, Dad."
"That's the point." I hung up before he could respond. That night, I told Ethan everything. We were sitting on my balcony, city lights stretching like a quilt below us. He listened without interrupting, just absently rubbing his thumb over my hand. They don't see me, I said finally. They see what I can do for them. And when I stop giving, they act like I'm the villain. He nodded slowly. People who depend on your kindness start thinking it's their right. You changed the rules, and now they're panicking. I stared at the skyline. I just wanted them to respect me. Respect isn't given, Judy, he said softly. It's taken by walking away from the ones who refuse to give it. His words sat with me all night. The next morning, I decided to take control of the story, my story. I called my parents, told them we needed to talk, all of us. Not another family dinner. A meeting. Neutral ground. My office. When they arrived, I was already seated behind my glass desk, contracts stacked neatly beside me. My team had cleared the schedule, blinds half closed. The energy wasn't family, it was business. Evan walked in first, looking annoyed. What's this about? You'll see, I said. Dad followed, already defensive. You didn't need to make it formal, Judy. I did, I said. Because this is about boundaries. Something this family's never respected. Mom fidgeted, trying to defuse the tension. Sweetheart, let's not make this dramatic. I opened a drawer and placed a new document on the table. This, I said, sliding it toward them, is the transfer of vehicle ownership form you were planning to file. You might recognize the signature line. Dad blinked. How? I told my lawyer to pull the state records. I interrupted. Turns out, Evan tried submitting an electronic request yesterday. So no, Dad. This isn't just a misunderstanding. Evan's face flushed red. Okay, you're making it sound worse than it is. I just thought. That's the problem, I said. You never think about anyone but yourself. Not once. When you crashed Mom's car, I covered it. When your business failed, I paid your credit card bill. I didn't say a word. But you trying to steal something I built? That's over. He opened his mouth, but I raised my hand. I'm filing legal ownership restrictions on every business asset I own. From today onward, none of you have permission to access, borrow, or claim anything under my name. And if anyone tries again, I'll press charges. Dad's voice trembled. You'd really go that far? Against your own family? I looked at him, really looked. The man who raised me to be responsible, yet punished me for being independent. The father who called my strength stubbornness, my ambition pride. I already went that far when you decided my yes was permanent, I said quietly. You taught me to take care of everyone. But you never taught me how to take care of myself. I'm fixing that now. Mom's eyes welled up. We didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said, softening. But you did. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with all the words we'd never said. Finally, Dad stood. I don't recognize this version of you. I met his gaze. That's because I stopped being the version you could control. They left without another word. When the door closed, I exhaled, long and deep. Ethan appeared in the doorway, having waited in the hall. How'd it go? I smiled faintly. Let's just say the SUV is staying where it belongs. He grinned. And you? I looked out the window, the city glowing gold, my reflection steady in the glass. For the first time, I said, I feel like I'm driving my own life. It's been 6 months since that day in my office. 6 months since I stopped being my family's emergency contact, their fixer, their cushion. At first, it was awkward. The text stopped. Holidays passed without the usual plans. The Sunday dinners I'd once rearranged my life for, they happened without me. For a while, it hurt more than I expected. But silence has a way of showing you who you really are without the noise. My business was thriving. The SUV that almost got stolen from under me had become more than a car. It was a symbol. Every time I drove it to meet a new client or parked it outside a luxury hotel, it reminded me that everything in my life existed because I built it. Ethan noticed the change before I did. You smile different now, he said one evening as we walked along the beach near Monterey. It's not that polite hostess smile anymore. It's the one that says you finally stopped auditioning. I laughed. Auditioning for what? For their approval. I didn't argue. He was right. For years, my worth had been tied to how useful I was. I was the helper, the provider, the emotional plumber for everyone else's leaks. But now, my worth came from something steadier, peace. One night I got a text from Mom. The first in months. Hi, sweetheart. We're having dinner next Sunday. Just us. No expectations. Dad would love to see you. I stared at it for a while. Part of me wanted to delete it, to protect the peace I'd fought so hard for. But another part, the one that still loved them, still remembered warm summers and late-night laughter, wanted closure, not revenge. So I went. When I pulled up the familiar driveway, the house looked smaller. Maybe it was the same size, but something about it didn't hold the same weight anymore. Mom opened the door, her eyes a little softer this time. You look good, Judy. So do you, I said, stepping inside. Dad was at the table. No football game this time. No tension in his posture. Just him, looking older than I remembered. He stood when he saw me. You came. I did. Dinner was simple. Roasted chicken, vegetables, a store-bought lemon cake.
No fanfare.
Just quiet conversation about the weather, my trips, and Mom's garden. When the plates were cleared, Dad took a deep breath. I owe you an apology. I blinked, not sure I'd heard him right. He went on. I didn't realize how much I took you for granted. How much we all did. I thought I was being fair, giving Evan a break because he had kids, assuming you'd be fine on your own. I didn't see how unfair that was. His voice cracked slightly. You deserved better from us. The words hit me harder than I expected. For years, I'd imagined that moment, but never thought it would actually come. I nodded slowly.
Thank you, Dad.
That means a lot. Mom reached for my hand. We're trying, Judy. It's different without you fixing everything. But maybe that's what needed to happen. I smiled faintly. Boundaries don't mean I don't love you. They mean I love me, too. We talked for another hour. No drama.
No guilt.
Just honesty, something my family had avoided for decades. When I finally left, Dad walked me to the driveway. His eyes lingered on the SUV for a moment before he chuckled softly. Still shiny. Still mine, I said with a grin. He laughed, then looked at me with something close to pride. You turned out stronger than I ever imagined. Maybe I always was, I said. Driving home that night, the road stretched ahead, quiet, open, familiar. The same path I'd driven 1,000 times before, but it felt different now. This time, I wasn't driving to prove anything. I wasn't trying to be enough. I wasn't trying to earn love. I was simply going home, to my life, the one I built with every no I finally had the courage to say. As the city lights appeared on the horizon, my phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. How'd it go? I typed back. Better than expected. I think we're finally okay. He replied with a heart. And as the SUV hummed beneath me, steady and sure, I realized something. Revenge wasn't always about making others pay. Sometimes it was about making yourself free.